Hello and welcome to the Pixelated Realms Gamescast, your guide to the digital landscape, untangling the mysteries of your favorite titles and discussing the latest and greatest in video game fun. I'm your host, Alex Salerno, and alongside me is my brother Tyler and my good friend Dustin. What's up, guys?
Hello.
What up?
Welcome back, everyone. Another week of gaming, although I can't say I honestly got to game a lot this week.
All right, it's going to be just me from now on. I'm kicking you both off. Last time, Dustin hasn't played a game in like a month.
I did.
Tyler doesn't play
today.
anymore.
It's
I
busy
did game
season at
today
work.
on purpose, just so that I could say I did.
I downloaded a game and it's freaking impressive, and I'll talk about it in a minute. So, something to look forward to.
Yeah. Before we dive into that, then let's do a little bit of housekeeping. For those who listen regularly and for those who are new, we have a Patreon now. It is free. I'm going to start by saying that. If you go to pixelatedrealms.org/Patreon, you can go ahead and join. And that's where we post all of our news, our announcements, latest updates, if, there's a schedule change or whatnot. So we really highly recommend everybody goes and at least, I forgot what it's called on Patreon, subscribe or whatever it is.
Oh man, now I'm doubting myself too. Was it
I don't know,
follow
but
or was
go
it
there
subscribe?
and log in so you can see
Check
when
the
we
box.
post
Just check
things.
the
And we
box.
also we post follow-ups from our episodes sometimes, like our review scale and things like that on there. So mini blog post-ish kind of thing. So if you want more gaming news or you want to interact with the community and chat with people and chat with us, that's where you go. Cool. So what have you guys been up to?
Yeah. What have you been up to, Dustin?
Yeah, Dustin.
So I finished Fairy Tale. Let's start there. I enjoyed it.
You finished Fairy Tale? Jeez.
I finished Fairy Tale. So
How many
only
episodes are in
about
that one?
300 episodes. I watched.
I thought it was 4, but okay, you're right.
About 6 weeks, roughly.
Wow.
So I crushed it. My wife was not happy the last 6 weeks about this adventure I went on, but she just doesn't understand about being in a guild. Okay,
being in a guild,
Is that what it's
Fairy
about?
Tale, or
Yeah.
whatever the sign is.
yeah, dude.
I don't even remember.
I'm in a guild. Fucking
Was it?
Loxus.
God, everyone on the internet. Okay, so
It's like, yeah.
what was it? Fairy Tale, but it doesn't
That's
look like an F.
It's not an F. So basically,
Oh, it's
really
the wing.
Now, real briefly, basically what it is, this is a symbol. Makarov, the guild master, and his nephew, or
It's clearly coming right off of watching the anime.
His grandson, Loxus. Basically, there's a moment in the show where they flash back to when Loxus is a little kid and he isn't able to be in the parade or something that they have every year in Magnolia, the city where Fairy Tale is. And there's basically that's the symbol that Makarov and Loxus have. It's where no matter where you are, I see you, and so kind of thing. It's just like a connection between the two of them. We're always together, even if we can't be together. And
so, what was your overall rating on Fairy Tale?
I thought it was really good. I've talked to a couple other friends who have watched it all, and they're like, it has so much wasted potential. And they think there's too much for we just power through and overcome by the power of friendship.
Yeah, there was a lot of power of friendship in Fairy Tale.
Well, I think
a lot of power
I think
of
the
friendship.
problem is they don't do a good job of articulating that raw emotion and really love are the biggest amplifiers to magical power. And that is why they keep overcoming, because the love they have for their friends that they consider family gives them the power to overcome any enemy. And they kind of hint at it at the very, very end of the show, but they don't do a good job of really enforcing that enough. And so I think it kind of gets annoying where it's we're such good friends and that's why we're going to overcome. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I think I told my buddy
Trying to be like One
an
Piece.
8. I mean,
was about to say.
Because that's the whole thing with One Piece is they're like, I trust my crew
One
so
Piece.
much that I know no matter what, we will
they
come
just
together.
do it on a way better level in One Piece.
One Piece is the toppest of tiers.
Yeah, I gave it an 8, but I wouldn't argue if someone was it's a 7 or even a 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
Different strokes for different folks. But I did play some Elden Ring.
Game today. Yeah,
Yeah,
you said game
played
chat.
about Elden Ring.
First time in a long time.
Yeah, first time in weeks, legitimately. Because when you're binging a show, as hopefully most of our listeners know, like you have very little time to do anything else.
Unless you play World of Warcraft, and then you do both at the same time.
Yeah. So, but with 2 kids, a wife, and a job, it's very hard to find time to do both right now, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I played Elden Ring, and I just think I'm over it.
How many
I
hours
Oh, yeah.
are you in, though?
I mean, I've basically beaten the game. I don't know exact hours.
It's
I didn't do
so
the
You're
expansion.
like 100 hours in. Like,
How can you go get to the finish line and then turn around and go to your car? You're at the finish line.
I know. I'm
Cross it.
seriously.
Go to your car.
I am the Seattle Seahawks on the 1-yard line, about to throw an interception instead of handing it off to Marshawn Lynch for the win. Like I'm level 145. The only 2 bosses in the base game that are left is Melania and the Elden Beast. Like I'm literally fighting both of them.
Just tell me when you're
And-
doing it, and I'll come in. We'll
He'll
co-op.
cheat,
I'll help you
and-
beat Melania.
I mean, we can. I got her. I've gotten her to like half health on phase 2 multiple times. I don't
Okay.
have anything to like cure the Scarlet Rot, which is fucking annoying. And I don't know. There's just something about dual wielding and pushing that L1 button that like really fucks with my finger, like when you like mash it. And I don't know why. It's like, but I don't know. Like I did it, attempted it a few more times today, and I just don't. I'd love to beat it. I don't feel like going out and grinding another 10 to 15 levels to do it. To like put me in a position where like I can now like more easily get past her or both of them. And I just like, do I want to go spend like 5 fucking hours grinding out levels just to beat these 2 guys that I don't like I've seen
that's
all
why
the
you
content,
get co-op friends.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
just
I've
text me.
done
I'll come jump
everything.
in. We'll do it.
Yeah, I've done all the content, so I guess that's the thing too. I don't feel like I'm missing anything in the game other than just like this sense of accomplishment that I don't really give a fuck about.
That's the entire like base of Dark Souls from soft games. Is the sense of accomplishment.
Wait, is it the end of the game? Like, do you not get the end cutscene or something?
Well, don't you
like...
want to sit on the throne and be the Elden Lord at the end and like hike your arm up on it and be like, bah, bah, bah. Unless you choose the other one, but whatever ending you want, there's multiple endings.
I'm gonna have the ending with Rainy.
Oh yeah, the Eternal Sky or whatever. You can't really see it, but my phone. Oh god, the background of my phone. I don't know how to like show it without all the apps in the way.
Yeah.
But
You
it's
just gotta
actually my
swipe.
character sitting. It doesn't do that anymore. It used to be. Oh Jesus, it used to be. Now it's like there's like
You have too
always
much
something.
shit. You don't even have a blank screen.
Give a verbal description for our listeners.
I could add a blank screen. Yes. There you go.
I keep a blank screen so I can see my hot waifu background.
Yeah. But it's just my Elden Ring character sitting on the throne.
Oh,
that's pretty
that's
cool.
It's been like that
Katie
for like
would
years.
that.
Or
That's
however long
pretty
the
good.
game's been out. Don't
So
you
now we
want to
have
have
There's a
priorities,
new
folks,
MMO
instead
game
of-
that came out?
Yeah, well, just hold on. Instead of adding his daughter to his phone background, he's opted for Elden Ring.
She's the screen. She's the lock screen.
That's like such an old photo.
That is. Well, it rotates through them.
Aww.
So it's like
you win.
different ones.
Aww, Naomi. Anyway.
I know, but she's so much older now.
Anyway, did you guys see there's a new MMO out?
Like,
It's called
out?
Throne and Liberty. And it currently has mixed reviews on Steam.
72 on Metacritic.
I've never even heard of this.
Free, and it's Amazon Games as the publisher.
Oh.
So you can't help but to feel like a little bit, lost.
Yeah, because New World did such a good job.
New World / yeah. So
it looks kind of cool. So it's like a medieval MMO, like
So
very classic medieval.
I've played all of about an hour of it, so sorry, listeners. We don't have expertise yet, but it reminded me a little bit more of like, what do we call it? Like active combat, where like almost like Black Desert, where you're hitting each swing of your sword as a different action, and you have a wide variety of skills, and they are like you have to you have to hit them. It's not just like an automatic hit via proximity, like World of Warcraft or, So it looks interesting. I feel like visually it looks really good, but like, I just haven't. It's one of those things where you won't know until you played a couple 10 dozen hours to really get a feel of it.
I've never even heard of this. Where did this just came out of nowhere, or has it just not been marketed very well?
I don't know, I've been familiar with it. I mean, for a while, just like on Reddit and whatnot. So,
okay, I'll give it a download. I just my backlog is growing by the day because now I still have to play Astrobots. Then Silent Hill 2 came out tonight, or by the time this episode comes out, it'll be today. And the Diablo 4 expansion comes out today. Well, tonight. So
man, I forgot. Oh yeah.
And I heard it's pretty good. I'm kind of hesitant to. There's been some reviews that I've like listened to and stuff. Like I listened to the Kind of Funny review. I looked at the IGN review and like certain things, and it's like sometimes it's reviewed by somebody who clearly is like a diehard fan of Diablo, and I'm a fan of Diablo. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a huge fan, and I love the story and I love the stuff. But at the same time, I'm not like blinded by its shortfalls. And some of the like reviews and stuff that I'm reading, I can kind of tell and be like, I'm pretty sure this person would have enjoyed it if it was a steaming pile of shit. So it's like, I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get that, especially with Diablo 4. Like, they're like, it's so great now. I'm like, okay, cool. What they change? And they like talk about it, and I'm like,
nothing.
You haven't really gotten me with that. They're like, they revamped this whole system, and I'm like, okay, so nothing's really changed that dramatically. Like, don't get me wrong, it seems like it's going in the right direction though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have made like some subtle different like changes over the last year or so, and it has been like veering in the correct direction in my opinion, but none of the changes have been drastic enough for me to finally be like, yes, like now I want to play this constantly. It does make me want to go and play the expansion, which I guess says something, right? I pre-ordered it or whatever like a month ago. And so like it has my interest enough to play through to continue through the story, but what it doesn't have is like the old like D2 of where I'm going to spend like 100 hours in this game, like, grinding my character out or whatever. Like, I really like the D4 story. I mean, we've talked about D4 vanilla like to death, so I'm not going to go over too much, but like I like the story and I like the base game of it, but as soon as you were done, you were like there was like no reason to keep playing.
Yeah.
And
I got all the teleport spots and like did the dungeons you needed, and then it just kind of felt like,
yeah, and it was just kind of like boring after that. And so I'm curious to see where they take it. And I hear there's like some co-op pieces, and one of the biggest criticism that I had in the first game is that it felt like a single player game the entirety of the game, that you just happened to be near other players in. Like you never ever felt like you needed to interact with another human. It just so happened to be that they were also in the same instance as you. But apparently in this one there is like raid mechanics in some of the bosses, so it's like you have to have a second person to complete it. Like you literally can't do it without another human. So that makes me interesting, but I haven't heard whether or not there's matchmaking or not. And if there's no matchmaking, that's an instant not going to work for me. Like if I have to go into chat and be like looking for a group for somebody to beat this fucking boss that's not even going to drop anything that I need, like whatever, like that's going to kill me off the bat. But I'm going in skeptical but hopeful. And so hopefully it's good. Hopefully it brings me back, because I really like I kind of like a little bit of grind's not the right word, but I like a little bit of busy work in some games, and sometimes, and Diablo had always filled that for me of like, I want to feel like I'm progressing, and I want, to feel like I can put in a little bit of time, but I also don't want to feel like I'm like falling behind. Like I felt like in Destiny, where I was like, if I'm like haven't played for a week, I'm falling behind. And so Diablo always filled that gap, but this Diablo 4 didn't. So hopefully maybe the expansion will for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm also excited for a new class. Like that always helps refresh things
Spirit
a little
Walker,
bit.
I think.
Yeah. Spirit Farer? Is that, or was it Spirit Walker?
I don't know.
Either way,
D4,
it was like animal
fucking sucks.
Spirit Born. Sorry, Spirit Born.
We were both wrong.
No, completely wrong. Though,
what else?
I was gonna say, what is your guys' opinion on like complex skill trees where you have lots of decisions and like you only like in Diablo, right? You have like a tree of skills, and you get, I don't know, whatever it is, like 50 points, but there's like 150 choices, and so you have to like
Generally-
merge them
as
together.
two people that played a shit ton of World of Warcraft, where it's
Yeah.
pretty like built
I'm
into our
pretty for
DNA.
it.
Yeah.
You like that complexity?
Okay, but I gotta say, D2, the way D2 handled it was still my favorite way, and the way it's handled in D4 is completely, it doesn't have any impact. So when I like in D4, if I'm an ice wizard, right? Taking one ice power does not benefit another ice power for the most part, with the exceptions of like certain things. But I found that a lot of the builds in Diablo didn't like have a super strong focus because the talents, unlike in Diablo 2, where, if for those who don't know, in Diablo 2, if you take the first level of Ice Bolt and then you get the next level of, the next Ice Bolt down, it was probably called Ice Blast, you would say to yourself, why would I ever use the lesser Ice Bolt? Well, the reason is why would I ever level it up? Why would I waste my experience on this lesser power? Well, the reason is because when you put points into that lesser power, it enhanced the better powers down the line. And like that whole concept like created like so many cool classes and and ideas in Diablo 2. So I just kind of wish it was more like that. I don't know. I don't like the zigzag that they have.
Yeah,
For me, with I only have experience with this in Warcraft, and WoW, so I think it's cool because it creates class variety, right? In like World of Warcraft, like if I was a druid, I could play it as like damage, tank, or healer, right? And each one had a different class tree, and I could build like 10, 30 or whatever, based on like maybe there was something over here in the feral build that like was really useful for a healer still. The reason that to a certain extent I don't like it is, for one, it makes balancing more challenging for developers. And no matter what, there's always going to be a meta that, like, if you're playing in-game, right? If you're playing in-game World of Warcraft and healer druid is what's the meta, that's one of the top healers at that time, then like you're going healer, right? And if like you want to be a DPS druid or you want to be a tank druid, like it's like heavily frowned upon. So like you're almost always like looking at two of those where they're at a severe disadvantage to the other one. I don't know. I think it's been fixed a little bit in Warcraft, but yeah.
Well, it's just interesting because what happens in WoW and what happens in Diablo, I think, are very different, because Diablo, it's a game of like trying to push the limit with your character. I think WoW requires significantly more like intergroup communication and like like in WoW, like if you don't have the meta talent build, you just won't
can't
get
be
invited.
selfish in WoW.
You won't be invited, right? In Diablo, you could do an off meta build and then be like, oh, I just cleared the best thing in the game, and people would be like, oh, he's good, or like we should do that. Like,
well, I mean,
you're not like a social outcast if you don't.
And you can still also prove
because
like
it's
that
a single
you're good
player
with
game,
the meta, but,
right?
But yeah,
It's basically
like you can be selfish in a game like that. Like you can just build whatever you want. Where you can do that in WoW too, but you're not going to be in a top guild doing in-game.
You're not going to clear the top content.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. It's a fact.
I think you're both right, and I'm glad, Dustin, you went down that road, because that's the problem that I have, is that 99.9% of the time I don't want to theory craft, right? Where you like, go through and try and figure out the optimal build yourself, when I can just look it up online and figure out someone else who's got a ton of time on their hands that I don't have. And there's like, 30 people in the world who are spending
Crunching
40
numbers.
hours a week trying to figure out the most optimal build. I'm just going to look online for their blog posts, and I'm going to do that. So to me, I always get really aggravated when I have these like huge choice trees, because like for every choice that I have, the chance of an error is high, right? I'm using error, but unoptimal. The chance of it being unoptimal is almost guaranteed. And so the level of complexity for each one of the choices increases like exponentially. And so
with great power comes great responsibility.
it seems like a little bit of just like work that is unnecessary. To me, and I always, so whenever I see these huge tech trees, like I don't know if you've ever seen Path of Exile, but they have a notoriously disgustingly huge tech tree, and it's like
It's a little
unless
much.
I can like pick everything at max level, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't mind choices, but it's like
But
the
you
choice
like
would
the
be
minimalism like me. You don't you like
yeah,
minimal. Like to me the Diablo 4 Paragon stuff, it's a waste of time, man. Like
it's more
I wish I could
complexity.
just copy and paste it. Yeah, it's that is
It's
like the definition
unnecessary.
of a waste of time. I
Yeah.
don't get like I'm deciding between like a little bit more like ability power and a little bit I don't know. It doesn't feel super significant. Of course it adds up, but
Yeah. I
it's
I,
just
I
one of
think
those things.
I think what happens is there's like some people who think in the development space that are like, I'm going to design this really cool, complex system that people are really going to invest in. And they think that that makes it seem like a better feature, but it is to like a very small set, and probably honestly the people they're talking to, because they talk to the really hardcore fans. So a lot of their feedback is like kind of a little manipulated because they're only talking to people who are like really hardcore. But when you get somebody who's casual, which is like 95-98% of the actual game base, we look at that and we go, I just want to play the fucking game. Like this is
What
a
if
whole
they
this
implemented like a system where like they, and some of them might already have this, but like a recommended next step in the tree, right? And then people who are
yeah.
really invested in it, they can be like, oh well, I don't actually do that because I like this other
Okay.
thing over here.
Some games have that, and actually I love it. Like Deadlock, for instance, has that. So Deadlock, the one that's the alpha from Steam. So they have this system where people can create builds and post
Very
them in
cool,
the
yeah.
game for an individual character, and then as people like upvote them or whatever, I forgot how it happens, but whatever one has the highest upvote will automatically, with no, you don't have to do anything, will show up as my recommended build. And so when I'm in the game, it's like, hey, here's the top build right now, and it'll just be like, just click the buttons, and I'm like, fuck yeah,
It's
like
like
that guy gets what he wants. I don't have to deal with it. Like
that's one of those things where like they're putting a lot of time and like effort into Deadlock. Like that is such a good idea. Like having a community build tab that you can just access immediately on the spot.
yeah, because and I would love that for Diablo, because I was kind of trying to allude to earlier, is like I don't mind having choices. What I do mind is adding so much complexity that it becomes a mini game, and uh and it takes away from the main loop of the game. If it's taking away from my experience, then I don't want that.
But
And
I
so,
feel
like
like
for instance,
Diablo, it's important. Like that's part of the Diablo like soul is like having these power selections.
yeah, but I'd rather be given like three trees and be like, hey, do you want to be ice? Do you want to be fire? Do you want to be poison? Pick one, and then go down that tree. And if it doesn't work out, switch or something. Like I don't need like 1,000 permutations that I have to figure out. Okay, well, do I
Yeah,
want to be
you
in
rather
as
just have
like a
three good ones.
like yeah? I rather like yeah, exactly. Like give me like smaller choices that I can work on and progress through. Because if I have to go and micromanage all of my tree stuff, and it's not just Diablo, we're just
God, you
happen
would
to be
hate
talking
WoW.
about that.
You would hate
But
WoW.
no, yeah, like
I'm
any
like
of these
saying
games,
like
so many games have
Logan
this.
would be switching gear in the middle of a boss fight using a potion, then macroing 10 things, and that was just one phase of the fight. I
See,
mean, it
to
was
me,
like
like as an
That's
engineer,
so unnecessary.
the
it's
the
crazy,
the,
dude.
the filter that I see this through is that they didn't want to spend the time to properly figure out the balance between the characters. So what they ended up doing is creating so many options,
Infinite
that
combos.
infinite combinations, that the players will figure it out for them, and they will create these optimal builds. So it's almost a little bit of like laziness in my
Yeah,
opinion,
like
because they're just saying
reverse.
like, if we give them enough options, they'll figure it out, right? Like, and then if one is more than the other, then they'll kind of tweak it then. But if you give everyone only one option, then there's going to be one that's like super heavy. But it's at the same time, it's impossible to test all of those permutations. So how could you possibly balance it? If you have less choices, it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to test your balance changes against each other. Now it's still a complex problem because they are there's you have to test against an exponential number. Still, it's just slightly less. But like if you have 10 characters. You now have
But
to
I'm just thinking of like more tailored games that don't don't consider doing that. Think of like God of War, or like I'm thinking of like The Last of Us, you know, like these narrative games that have a very, or like Ocarina of Time. Like that's a great example of a game you never level up in Ocarina. In any Zelda game, you never level up, but you're always progressing, usually via the items and then increases in your health and other stats. But like that's such a great example of like using like it's the opposite of a Zelda game is a crappy game. A game you just level up. There's no reason. It's a phone game, right? You're leveling up for no reason. You don't know why you're doing it. A Zelda game's the opposite. It's like you don't even need to level up and you're progressing. You know, you feel that sense.
Yeah. And I like, if you're gonna give me all these complex things, like let me choose them all at one point. Like, you know, for instance, like in Skyrim, you can theoretically max out everything,
Yeah.
I think.
You just have to
Or
level up enough, right?
I think so.
You could. I think
maybe
there's a max level, but you could
there
easily
might be like a
crack
limit,
that.
but theoretically you could like get, or you know, I always mod it to like increase my max level to like 1,000. So that's maybe I'm just
I
thinking of
remember like one
my
of the
game,
first like
but
stupid. We
maybe
sat there and we like cast the same like sleep spell on a cow, and it just like level up 1 year like restoration or something like
yeah,
that. You
or
just sit there for like a
maybe
half
it
an
was
hour.
maybe Oblivion's the one that doesn't have any a limit, because you know, you're just like
Oblivion's
it's
the one.
skill based.
Yeah, Oblivion's the one where you jump and you get experience for jumping.
Yeah,
In
run. You just
Skyrim, you
run
don't have
around
a
the
jump
city.
skill. Yeah, you don't have.
I remember going to school and putting my controller upside down, so my character was just running into the distance, so I could come back
You
with a
could
high
just get
athletic.
athletics. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
You know.
yeah.
That's like
Speaking
old
of
school
totally
SimCity.
random tangents, I have been playing Call of Duty World at War, and
Oh,
I just gotta say, I just like miss the old Call of Duty games. Like, I just
yeah.
miss them so
The
much.
new one comes out at the end of the month, and I keep them like I keep thinking like the new Call of Duties just don't hit the same. Like they're beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Like the graphics are
Yeah.
gorgeous, but they just it's so Fortnite-ified now that it's just like give me like a
I'm just
raw
saying,
like
like I'm playing World. If you haven't played World at War takes place. It tells the story in World War II of America and the Pacific, the war in the Pacific, and it tells part of the story of the Eastern Front from the Russian perspective, fighting the Germans. And I'm playing like each mission, and I was just like YouTube, like searching like, oh, what, like it said like, oh, you're on this island, now just look up the battle of that island. And then I found like all these videos like detailing the whole history of these battles, and like they basically like Call of Duty did an amazing job of picking like the most crucial battles in World War II, and like the history that they were, I mean, that, you know, this was 10 to 20 years ago, these games now. So it's just like really cool. Like it's like you're literally living the history. And I
mhm.
feel like nowadays we're just shooting each other with modern weaponry. It kind of means nothing, you know?
Yeah. I know. I wish we were able to do that with a more modern Battlefield. Like Battlefield 3, I think, did a pretty good job of their story. I want to say it was 3, because I remember playing that one and being like, "Fuck, this is the first time in a long time, probably since one of the like Call of Duties, like you were saying, where I felt like a really intense story." And I don't think it was based off true events, but it felt real enough, and it was like it was so intimate with the characters as opposed to like you know, you're like you feel like you're in danger, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Well, now in Call of Duty it's like you're the best in the world,
But
go in
it's
and
it's
kill 400 people, you know, and
it's
you're
no
like,
longer
okay.
about like a history. Like I don't know. I feel like the
Yeah.
original Call of Duties had this like beautiful like you know, World War II, World War II is this really cool time. It has all these cool stories, but now we're just like fighting the same random
Well,
dudes
Battlefield 1
with
has a
I don't know.
really great prologue.
Battlefield 1. I agree. Battlefield
You
1
play
was
like
actually
a
one of the
15 or
yeah.
20-minute like intro that like where you can't win. You
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
die, and it's supposed to show
you
like the
go through like
brutality
5
of World
people.
War One. Battlefield 5.
Although
So let me like break down Battlefield for you guys. You know, I worked on that game. I helped launch 1, 5, and I left my old agency just before 2042 came out. And like, this is just my own opinion. This is not EA's opinion. This is my opinion. But from just looking at it and looking at how people respond to these games that came out, it's not worth it for the developer to invest heavily in a single player content. It's just not.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very hard to please. And instead, so like we've seen this with Battlefield 5, I think it was. Is it 5? Is it 1 or 5? I think it was 1, and it had that prologue, but it also had like 3 like hour and a half or maybe hour long missions that you could do.
Yeah, they were awesome.
And but like they were pretty poorly received.
Wow.
And you put like so much development resources, effort, marketing, all that stuff to these missions, and frankly, like, you get more shit from the community for having a bad single player experience than just not having one.
But like, isn't that like how we got to the Fortnite-ification of Call of Duty? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying the numbers are lying. Most people probably don't give a shit about the history and all that stuff. But like, I'm just saying that, like,
it's not. It's not
history
that's not
specifically,
the point
but
I'm
the
making.
single player.
It's more so from like a development resources point of view, where Battlefield 5 just went pure multiplayer, and very few people were like sitting there bitching about not having single player. Versus
Battlefield 5 World War II?
Yes, it's World War II. Where Battlefield 1 had the single player, and people were fucking outraged by that they didn't like it enough, or like it wasn't longer, or whatever it might be. So it's just like the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. Like, and also like from like a purchasing power, right? Like having like a single player campaign when Battlefield is a known multiplayer game, right? That is what it is built on. That is what you're going to keep coming back for. Like the amount of resources versus the very likely reception versus how many people are buying the game or that is a decision maker for them, having that single player experience, are so low that it just doesn't make sense. Like, you're better off just focusing on multiplayer.
Just to clarify, though, Battlefield 5 does have a single player. It's just very short.
Okay, so then that's the one I'm talking about then, that has like the 3 missions. I knew one of them was
pure multiplayer. 2042 doesn't have one.
No, it doesn't.
I remember being incredibly impressed with Battlefield 1. Like, not only was it like incredibly like cinematic, but it was like, it had a lot of like very cool visual and historical moments.
Yeah,
I get Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1 mixed up in my head quite often.
1 is World War 1. Battlefield 5 is World War 2.
I know, but like, I mean, I remember them. I'm looking at images again, and I'm starting to remember, because in Battlefield 5 you do this like, it's kind of like open world-ish, not open, but it's like an open like map, and you have to kind of go through some things.
Oh yeah, Battlefield 1 had the war stories. I don't know, I liked it. I remember like loving the music, and I don't know. Either way, I'm a fan of historical shooters.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we need more stories in our games. Multiplayer is cool, but I like stories. I like feeling engaged. I like a narrative. And I know maybe I'm not the majority here, but
well, think about like Titanfall 2, or like there's games out there that games out there that do like really awesome stories, that work. So I don't know. It's not that it's always the
I don't know if
option,
a game,
but
if a game's purely multiplayer and doesn't have any story, and because like even like I'm trying to think of things like even like Overwatch, they built a story around the multiplayer, even like stuff like that. But if it doesn't have a story,
never
to me,
came out.
Well, but no, even without that part, it has like they have their kind of like story that is evolving even in the multiplayer, with their videos that they have and whatnot. But it's like if a game comes out and has zero narrative to it, I have no interest in that game anymore. So like 2045 or 2042 or whatever, it came out, it has zero narrative. It's just a multiplayer shooter genericness. And I think that's one of the reasons why like it didn't have a lot of interest, other than the fact that it had bugs and stuff when it came out. But it's like I need a reason to feel like I want to live in this world, and if that's not there, even if it doesn't have to be in the form of a campaign, I just need some kind of narrative to drive the world building and everything like that. Even
Yeah.
Deadlock has one, and it barely does anything. All
Exists
it does,
yet.
yeah, it's like the story comes through in the unique characters and the weird world. Well, if you're just a generic shooter that's just got, okay, we got the PMC group versus the Americans or whatever in some fucking random made up location, that's not a story. That's just something. You know what I mean? So I just, I'm on team narrative.
Yeah, me too. Team history games.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad that the Black Ops 3 is going to be on Game Pass, because this is one of those ones where I was like, I just want to play the campaign. I don't really give a shit. I mean, like, I like to play Call of Duty multiplayer. Don't get me wrong. Like, I play it
Yeah,
a
you're
ton,
gonna
but
play it.
yeah, but I also want to play the campaign. Like, I want to actually go through, and I'm not as big a fan of Black Ops as I am the modern warfare games, but like, I still like, appreciate the weird,
At this point,
Cold
like, what
War.
is the difference, honestly?
Huge, the story, narratively huge difference.
Oh, it's just the like narrative.
They're
I thought
completely
like
different
as
things.
far as like shooting and like the multiplayer, it feels
Well,
the
they're in
same.
different
Though.
eras. Modern Warfare is like a slightly more advanced now, and then Black Ops is in the Cold War, like the
Really?
70s.
Oh, well, that's more
So,
fun than
but
modern.
it also has weird technological advancements, but of the time, kind of not steampunk, but kind of like weird technology that they use at that time. But it's supposed to be kind of like a spy story, from what I remember. But
Yeah.
I know people are probably like, "No, Alex, you're wrong." But I know it's in the Cold War. That's all I know.
I remember the first one having that like crazy twist. But anyway.
Yeah, and zombies came from Black Ops, and they're bringing
Oh
zombies
yeah.
back to what it was before. I'm always
Wait.
surprised every time Call of Duty comes out. I'm always surprised that they don't release a standalone zombie game.
I know.
Like,
Why don't they?
they did Warzone as a standalone thing. Why not have its own zombies? They should have their own like completely separate zombies game, even if you had to pay 20, $30 to get into it, and then, you know, just keep updating that as its own like live service kind of a thing. Like, I don't know. They always feel like it has to be bundled with a game.
Right.
I just think that
I'm gonna cut you out because I want to get to one more thing, and then we're already at like what 35 minutes. So
yeah, we're talking about video games.
I know, but I want to before we get into questions and then our big topic, I want to ask Tyler why he hasn't brought up Metaphor ReFantazio.
I was gonna bring that up for you. Have you
Because
even
it's
heard of
a
it?
new JRPG that just came out, 94 Metacritic by Atlas or Sega, and it's
Everyone's
like,
giving it 10 out of 10s.
yeah, it is like popping off. So I was
This
like,
is a
this,
Tyler ass game.
yeah, I'm kind
Oh
of
my
shocked.
god.
You haven't.
October 11th, 4 days from now. It looks like Persona.
It's made by the guy who, so the director of Persona started his own studio called Studio Zero,
It
and
looks
this is their
exactly like
first.
Persona.
This is their first game that's the original IP from the studio. So not shocking. I think
Is
it
it a
also.
getcha game though?
Don't
So
I don't think
it's
so.
the director, series director, character designer, and composer from Persona all went to the studio and created this game.
Oh my gosh. Sign me up.
Yeah, I
Pre-purchase?
don't
Install
think
demo.
it's. I don't think it's a gotcha game.
$70?
No, it's like a full game. It's not like a free to play or anything.
I thought you
Yeah.
guys just said it was an MMO for some reason.
No,
No,
it's
RPG,
it's
JRPG.
Oh. Well, that's still cool though. I'm excited. I love. Oh, it's Atlas. Yeah, of course. That is Persona. The same people who did Persona.
Yeah. So the Persona studio is like, what the fuck?
Exciting.
You own us both.
Metaphor ReFantazio. Well, that looks really amazing.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I don't like that it's turn based, but I still might try it
I
out.
like that as
I
turn.
like-
I know you
I
do.
like
That's why
turn-based.
I thought about it for you.
I miss turn based. I mean, some things do turn based poorly.
Think, man.
I like
But-
hack and slash, like near style.
I get so
Well-
bored hitting X X X X X X X X X X. You know, just like parry. X X
I mean,
X
I
X
think
parry.
they're so different. Like, I like hack and slash too. I love a good hack and slash game, but I also appreciate a good, turn based.
I mean, I appreciate a good game regardless. So
Yeah.
Except you
Speaking
don't
of good
appreciate good
games,
games, Alex, since you hate Nier, and Nier's fucking amazing.
yeah,
Nier is
maybe
so
one of these days
cool.
I'll give it another shot. But
It changes
you know,
between types of game. Anyway.
And she's got a big old ass.
I was playing the Alan Wake 2, and because
Oh
the
yeah.
DLC came out, and I was like going to give it another run, and I want to platinum it, so I was like, I have to do a second playthrough anyways. And I was playing the first DLC, and I gotta say, it's hilariously awesome because what it is one of the characters in the game, his name is Rose, and she's like this diner waitress, and she's in the first game too. But basically, she's just kind of this quirky girl who ends up kind of getting very slightly wrapped into some of the Alan Wake story. But she ends up becoming obsessed with Alan Wake as like a writer, and she thinks maybe correctly that he's like sending her secret messages like in the newspaper, and like she's kind of getting a little weird and paranoid.
Paranoid.
And but anyways, she's like a super fan. And so the DLC is a I didn't realize it because they don't tell you, but as you're kind of starting to go through it, what happens is they have this show called Night Springs, which is basically the Twilight Zone. And so each DLC is like an episode that you're playing of this. So it's kind of like it's not like related to the main storyline. It's like you're in an episode of Night Springs. So in this episode, you're playing as Rose, that girl, that waitress. And what I didn't realize until you're like 15 minutes into it is that it's a fan fiction that she wrote about her adventure and how she's incorporating it into Alan Wake. And it's so funny because it starts off with her like in the diner and she's like pouring coffee for people, and people are like, oh my God, Rose, you're the best. You're the greatest coffee person ever. I can't believe you're wasting your talents here. That kind of shit. And then she gets this like random phone call, and it's like Alan Wake, and he goes, Rose, I need you to come and save me. I'm in danger. And she goes, I'm coming, Mr. Writer. And then she goes into the back room, and it's a fucking armory, like a full ass armory. And they give you every weapon fully upgraded with like basically unlimited ammo. And she like kicks this door down, and you just start blowing people away. And I'm like, this is hilarious.
Unhinged. I love it.
Yeah. And I was like, this is not what I expected. And that's what I love so much about it. Like, I love when I'm shocked by what's happening in a game, but in like a pleasant way. Subverting expectations is like the number one way you can bring a story to life. And I just was blown away because you're just like, you're literally just blown away, like dozens of these enemies going through. And it's so hilarious because like this all happens in the beginning, but you're like, you meet Alan Wake, but it's not Alan Wake. It's his twin brother, his evil twin brother. And it's just like, and he's like riding a motorcycle, and he's like, I'm going to go kill my brother because I'm jealous of how awesome he is, and it's just so like tongue-in-cheek and hilarious. I had to bring it up. Like, if you haven't played the Alan Wake 2 DLC and you're a fan of that game, you have to play it. It's so good. It's so funny. I'm like literally like an hour in, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go right back as soon as we're done.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is what games are for, man. Games are for having fun. Remedy does so good at that. All right, cool. Should we dive into a few questions then?
Yeah, do we have questions?
So we have one question from Emily.
Ralph.
Don't take my spot. This is all I have. Ralph. Ralph, don't worry. Nobody can replace you. Not even
no
Emily.
one can replace Ralph.
The question that he brings up for us today is, do you guys think it's important to have DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, be a focus when creating a video game? Why or why not? I think it's a good question. I think it's a complicated question. And I mean, the easy answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yes, I think it's important, and I think you guys would probably agree with me. But it's like, do you mean in the video game? Do you mean when creating the video game? Because there's a lot of things. Because I mean, I think the answer is yes to both, but.
Well, it's art, right? Like, video games are essentially an art. So I think it's more like creating a world where like we naturally are doing that, and trying to like, obviously the world has a lot of work to do in that arena. So it's very important, and obviously it's a big topic, and in recent years. But I think it just does nothing but benefit us. There's so many like great pieces of art and video gaming that have like benefited so greatly from exploring other cultures and other identities of all kinds. So like, it's one of those things where like, no matter what, you want to say about it, it really has like just done nothing but like, you know, enhanced our ability to enjoy games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I was trying to think of like where's a good example of that. And since I'm playing Alan Wake 2, I mean, in Alan Wake 2, the main character, other than Alan Wake, but in Alan Wake 2, the main character is a black woman, and it totally fucking works so good. Like, and I was thinking like, I never once felt though when I was playing her that I was like, oh, the main character is a black woman. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like she was the main character, but it brings like a whole new perspective. It lets people feel connected to the characters that you want to feel that like every character shouldn't be just some white man, because there's so many more players out there than that. So I think there is
Yeah,
a
I
level
mean,
of diversity that you want to have in games.
well,
Yeah,
it's just part of like inherent to exploring like different like like what are we just gonna tell westerns and for the rest of time, you know what I mean? Like you gotta
Yeah.
like I want a cool game that's authentic to Japan or authentic to another culture. Like that's super fun. And as we were just talking about with like the World War II games, like there's history to explore. Assassin's Creed games, even though they can be a little fictitious, they still like gives you a really cool idea of like what Greek was like, you know, or Greece was like, you know. So yeah, either way, you know, I we're still at the tip of the iceberg, right?
yeah, and I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I think it's super important to have it. I do think that, you know, as long as it feels authentic, and it's not pandering. I think like, you know, if you're making a game based on like something that's supposed to be historically accurate, like if like feudal Japan or something, I don't even know, and then all of a sudden like you go into town and the town is like literally like every
Mocking
ethnicity
it.
through this town, that's in feudal Japan, then you're like, that's kind of weird because there probably wasn't a town filled with like fucking brown, white, black, uh, Asian, like every different person from around the world in this ancient Japanese village. It's like that
Hmm.
with that kind of stuff. If it's like happening or like being forced like that, then I feel like that's
You
weird.
just mean like lazy work, basically.
Yeah, lazy
Hmm.
attempts to have diversity in
Yeah.
settings that just don't really make sense. I actually dealt with this a lot on Battlefield 5. It was actually, I guess it was like one of the very first incidents like this I can think of where it was like a DEI issue, and it was because we had women soldiers
Yeah, I
in the
remember that
game,
now.
and like we had a woman soldier in the debut trailer, and
Yeah.
people like lost their fucking mind about how
Yeah, I
there
remember
weren't
that.
women soldiers in World War II, which is just total bullshit. There were, sure, they weren't like massive amounts compared to the men, but there were women soldiers, and it's also like stuff like that where people are like, oh, like you're trying to like Battlefield's like a historically accurate game. And I always thought that was really funny because then you'd see like somebody like riding a fucking horse standing up with like a flamethrower.
Like
It's like, oh yeah,
literally
so
taking out of a blimp,
Yeah,
like with
jumping out of a jet,
you're right,
shooting, jumping back
jumping
yeah,
in the
out of
jet.
yeah, doing the Randy Zook, fucking jump out of the jet and then land in the blow the fucking other guy up with a bazooka and then land back in your jet. So it's just really funny, but yeah, so I think like most games that are just based on complete fiction, like yeah, like even like Ghost of Yotai, like not one time watching that trailer was I like, oh my god, they put a woman in this game, and like there were no women samurais, which is also false. There were, um, and it's like, it just honestly, I feel bad for people within this community right now that like that is where their mind instantly goes,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's a bummer because it's just like such a games are like so amazing, so to like have people that like just want to find a reason to dislike it over something
Yeah.
that doesn't affect the story, doesn't affect the gameplay. It's just really, it might affect the story a little bit, but if it's a woman versus a man, but it's just dumb. It's just really fucking
Hmm.
dumb.
And they'll do it over literally anything. I give this no time in my life, but I saw on Threads or something that apparently Silent Hill 2 has some uproar that some incels are saying some shit about, and I didn't even look into it.
I mean,
it was like
people
I'm
are
not
always
even.
gonna
It
find a
honestly
reason
makes
to
me
be
want to play the
upset.
game more.
Well,
I
it's
was like,
because there's just this handful of people right now in the community who are like literally just making money
It's
off
just
of
the
these
internet,
folks.
man.
You know, like
That's
that
true.
are rage bait, like engagement farming.
Yeah,
This stuff,
getting
and,
clicks. You know.
You know, as
Yeah,
By the way,
people
like,
talk
comment,
about
and
it.
subscribe.
You know, so it's like there's an audience for this, because the fact of the matter is there are people that truly believe this, and now there's multiple voices at the top of this mountain for these people to gravitate towards, who feel like their fun is being threatened by something, and it's just like, again, like a really misguided point of view. But then there's also people that are taking advantage of it and trying to make money off of it. So,
well, with all that being said, I just watched the new Halo trailer, and I think we should talk about it.
Okay.
we need to get like
I usually say a little thing here, but I don't really like how it's been written, so I'm just gonna say we post new episodes every Tuesday morning. Follow and subscribe to us. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Patreon. Go find us. Pixelated Realms. We're not that hard to find. All right.
We do need
Halo.
we need like music that we can play as we go into our main topic, and like that sets the main topic.
Yeah, Tyler, you got homework.
That'd be kind of cool.
I wanted.
Here we
So
go.
he made an intro for us. It was just a little long.
Oh,
I don't have the sound bite. I don't have it up. Hold on. Hold on. It's too late now. We lost it, but I'll have it next time. But that's a great idea. I think you're getting a peek behind the curtain.
Flick the spring. But yeah. Anyways, let's talk Halo. Going back to Unity.
Unreal.
Unreal. Sorry, Unreal.
Going back,
Going to
were they in
Unreal.
that originally?
I think they must have been, like the way that people are talking about it. This is like reminds me of old Halo. So I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
That they must have originally
it
used
says
Unreal.
Engine 5 right here on this trailer.
Well, no, but did they use Unreal for like Halo 2 or 3 or old Halos?
I don't think so. I mean, it was around then, but I'm pretty sure they had their own thing.
I mean, Unreal was its own game, right? It was like at the time.
Yeah,
you know?
it was a competitor at the
Unreal
time.
Tournament. Yeah, it was the competitor. So there's very little chance they used Unreal. I'm sure Google could tell us though.
The Blam engine is the name of the game.
It's just the internal
used to power Halo.
It sounds like an internal.
It's so funny, tangent. But being like a developer, the fact that we give our like gaming engines names is hilarious to me. That unless it's like a product like Unreal Engine or Unity, all it means is just a cobble of tools that they've built in their own studio. It's not like an engine.
You can't ship it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we use like 10 different things that we've just made over the years.
DICE called theirs Frostbite.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if they still use
No, Snowflake is the Ubisoft's. Yeah.
Yeah, Snowflake.
They all have their own fun.
The new trailer, it looks gorgeous. I mean,
what do we know? I mean, I don't. Besides that, they're now not 343, and they're Halo
rebranding.
Studios.
So they were 343
now Halo Studio. Cool.
Okay.
Whatever. It means nothing.
I like the name 343. I don't know why they felt like they needed to rebrand. Like, did they really think that people hated them that much that they wanted to rebrand?
That's got to be it, right? I can imagine maybe it's not hate for 343. It's the idea that maybe as 343 people, unless you're a gamer, like you don't associate it completely with Halo, or maybe you think that like 343 is doing other stuff and not just Halo, and it's just kind of like a signification that like we are Halo Studio. This is what we do. This is what we work on. All of our resources are dedicated to this, at least in name, because they could still pull people off the team if they need them for other projects. But that's the only thing I can think of that, like, yeah, there's maybe just like a negative association with 343 right now, because as much as Halo 5 had so much hype and I think did good out of the gates, I think most people would chalk up Halo 5 as like a overall disappointment.
I really liked it.
Introduce anything new to me, I would say.
I think Halo hasn't evolved. Like, Halo to me is like Battlefield. It's been
the same.
Right? Like, I love Battlefield. I grew up with it. Right? Like, I fucking put so many hours into 2 and Bad Company. but like people just don't play games like that anymore. Like because there's not like ranked, right? There's not that shit. So like Halo single player, sure, but it's the same like issue that I think has plagued Destiny. Like I just don't think that like Halo multiplayer is like what people crave in today's age anymore. It just I
Yeah,
don't
they
know.
didn't modernize it at all.
Yeah, it's just like trying to play off nostalgia too much, and it needs to be modernized to fit like the current scheme of what people do in multiplayer. I don't know, like did they even do like bring back any like Halo esports, like bigger stuff with Halo 5?
Mm,
I don't think
I
they
don't think
did.
so.
Maybe like
Not that
small
No,
I
scale,
noticed at all.
but nothing like major, right?
no,
So yeah, I
not
don't know.
that
I
I
just
know
don't
of.
think that multiplayer is very interesting in Halo anymore. And to have a game that's successful long term, it needs to have replayability in the
Yeah,
multiplayer.
I mean the game itself had a really good foundation. I liked the single player. It was different. It wasn't. I mean, it didn't like knock my socks off, but I enjoyed it. And the multiplayer was good enough. And I really liked their like I want to say battle pass, whatever they called it. Their like battle pass system where you're
Season
like,
pass or something.
yeah, once you bought it, like you had it forever, and you could switch between which one's your active one. And I've talked about this before, like as like an example of like how to do it right.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, but something that they missed, and like kind of to your point, is like it didn't the multiplayer didn't really have any progression. Um, the battle passes were the progression, so you just kind of felt like you were just playing for nothing. When well, that's fine for like a short period of time. If they did market it as a live service game when it came out, and to keep a game as a live service, you have to feel like there's something like you're trying to get to. And I don't think we ever felt that. So I felt like,
Hmm.
and I maybe other people have different opinions, but it felt like a good start, but they didn't push it far enough, or they didn't capitalize on the strengths that it had already.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's a good way
curious
to
to see what
articulate it.
happens, but I'll have Game
But
Pass, so hopefully I'll be able to play it on day one.
yeah, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, the one thing I know people are like upset or not or whatever about them switching to Unreal, but who cares what engine they use? Like,
Yeah, just make it a fun
I
game.
mean, I like Unreal. I think it's a gorgeous. It's gonna look gorgeous. Like, why wouldn't you? I mean, so like as it has come from the developer perspective, right? So in video games, for the longest time, you would have an in-house engine team who would build your engine, where they would from like basically from scratch. You would handle your 3D geometry. You would handle how you import 3D meshes, how they work, and all this stuff. That's a lot of work. It's an insane amount of work. There was no like great solution for a very long time. There was like good solutions, but nothing great, especially when you're trying to only do exactly what's necessary, and maybe you have memory constraints or storage constraints, or like you need to build only what you need for your particular game and use case. Those kind of restrictions, because of technology has advanced so far, are completely gone. You like have so much memory, you have so much storage, you have so much CPU cycles, and like the Game Boy, it was 1 megahertz. One,
Right.
1 megahertz.
It's
It
insane.
had 8 kilobytes of memory. Like you had to really think of. I mean, that's a very extreme example, but back then you'd have to craft your own custom shit
Just,
because you're working with like nothing. It might say it technically
I mean,
has
yeah.
4 megahertz, but it has 4 instructions per node or whatever. So they often say it has 1 megahertz, because I know you're looking it up and you're gonna be like, blah, blah, blah. Um, yeah, but nowadays things are so like easy. We have so much working room
So many
that,
options, yeah.
and you have a whole huge company, a multi-billion-dollar company making this engine for you. Like I don't see why you wouldn't use them, other than the fact that they're going to take a cut, which I understand. If you're have enough money or whatever manpower to get around that, then sure. But I mean, it makes logical sense to me. I mean, Unreal has been spending decades
Yeah, they've been
perfecting
doing a
their
pretty good
their
job.
their engine.
It saves you a lot of time and resources, like you said, besides the investment.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, so but the only thing this changes is it's going to look great.
Yeah, we don't know anything else. It's gonna look
Yeah,
beautiful
that's it.
though.
Yeah, we have no idea. I mean, assuming they're using like the new Unreal Nanite technology and shit, like it's gonna look good. They changed the
They have
Man,
some
name.
nice.
side
Cool.
by
New.
side stuff that looks pretty cool in terms of the graphics. If you
Mhm.
watch the video, I mean, it looks
Yeah,
good. They have some really old footage in this though, like which is I don't know if this has to be with what Halo put out, but it's like Halo Studio 2024 versus Halo 3 2007. It's like, yeah, no fucking shit. It looks way
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Like, are you
They pulled
fucking
some really
serious? Like,
old shit out.
it's like the old other shit was rocking like a fucking 9800 GTX or whatever.
Not even.
You know, like
not even.
yeah, probably not even
Yeah.
that, right? It's like
I like it.
7600 or some shit, but it's just
Yeah.
like,
Here's my
yeah,
Ferrari
like, 'cause
versus my Model T. Like,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
I would have loved to
Which one's
see
better?
just footage versus like Halo 5. You know, like how much it's improved. I also think like one thing
Show
about
me.
these like with these like trailers based on just like graphics is like look at like when Unreal 5 came out, they put out like that trailer that like pushed the graphics to the absolute limit.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it almost looked like
It's
the
insane.
real world, right? Just like
Yeah.
fucking out of control. No one builds games at that level. No one
'Cause you
pushes this
can't.
shit. Yeah, like,
You got to play to the
There's
lowest
no
level.
point. But there's no like you got to think about this. Like sometimes when you put so much detail in a game, you got to ask yourself if you're actually doing yourself a disservice, right? Like shooters, you're like super detailed shooter. Oh, I can't even see anything. Like I can't distinguish a man from a barrel. Like,
well,
you know,
it's not even that. I think it has more to do with like if you're playing, like if you're making this game just for PlayStation, a PlayStation exclusive, then maybe you can push it to the absolute limits of PlayStation, right? But if this game comes out on PC, especially, you can't do that. You can't push it that hard because you're going to alienate 90% of the base who doesn't have a 4080 Ti,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
well, nowadays they want them phone ready too. You know,
you know,
I mean,
so
seriously.
like games.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it also like at a higher level of resources to. It also like massively increases file size, so you're gonna have like a 350, 400 gigabyte fucking download that people are gonna bitch about. Or like, hey, you have to completely clean out your PlayStation 5 to play this game because it's such a big file, right? Like,
Yeah.
so there's just these little things that go into it that alienate gamers if like you push the graphics that hard. So nothing is made to really test the limits of what these engines can even do. So I'd be curious to know, like, yeah, this looks cool, but is it actually going to look this good whenever their next game comes out? Because in this, it's really easy. Like, it's all still images of just, you know, or like, it doesn't say it means shit. Basically, is what I'm saying. In terms of graphics, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and plus, never trust a cinematic trailer, of course.
Yeah, and these aren't. I think this is supposed to be like in-game footage or like in-engine footage. So it's like that's cinematic, but yeah, like it's just not a
But it's
realistic
still pre-rendered,
view.
is it not? Right? Like it's
It's just not a
Most of
realistic.
it's live. They now the big thing is real time, right? They try not to do that because they want to show the power of the real time rendering engine.
all right, but I still haven't seen gameplay.
Yeah, you know, and is it going to be able to be stable at a crazy high like graphic fidelity with the fucking the scourge or whatever the fuck they're called, like 50 bad guys on your screen, you know, or is it just going
Oh,
to
the flood? I was
Yeah,
like,
like-
what are you to the scourge? You're talking about WoW.
Yeah, you know, like the flood. I haven't played a Halo,
flood.
like the old Halo games in a long time, so you know, yeah. But I mean, like, can it handle that, or is it again going to be scaled down to be able to not crash as soon as you have like a shit ton of bad guys on the screen at the same time?
Space Marines 2, baby.
Yeah.
Horde
Gotta
mechanics.
wait for that thing to get on sale so we can rope Dustin in. I'm getting my second character to level 25. What?
Well, cool. Any other thoughts on Halo?
I mean,
I
we're all
wish
gonna play
them
it when it comes out.
success, though. Okay, so I'm
I
not
do
rooting
too.
against Halo. I'd love to see
Dude,
the
I hope-
franchise return to
I
former
hope it
glory.
blows us out of the water.
Dude,
Yeah.
I would love to see a resurgence of Halo.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll see.
cool. I think we'll end on that note. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to be notified when we post new episodes. We post new episodes every Tuesday morning. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, and Patreon. We are Pixelated Realms. Thank you very much.